the new host of Locked On Utes. Any of you Pac-12 Utah fans out there, your new host of Locked On is coming on the show today. We're talking all things Utah and Pac-12 spring football. Here we go.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Pac-12 your first listen or your first view if you're watching on YouTube every day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. I'm Spencer McLaughlin, host of Locked On Ducks. He is Austin Facer, the new host of Locked On Utes. And together for today, we make one episode of Locked On Pac-12, which today is brought to you by Stat Hero. Stat Hero is reshaping the way you play fantasy sports. Dozens of house-based games to play daily. No sharks, no funky props. Just your skill versus the lineups you choose. Sign up today at stathero.com/lockedon. Austin, my man, welcome to the Locked On Network. It's good to have another Pac-12 show out there in the ether, and we're going to talk some Utes today.
Yeah, thanks, Spencer. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to talk about the Utes, especially coming off of a championship season. Just to introduce myself really quick to the Locked On Podcast Network audience, my name's Austin Facer, as you can see below. I'm a Utah graduate. I've covered the University of Utah and a number of other sports for a number of other publications and outlets here in Salt Lake City for some time. I'm just really excited that I get to be a part of this opportunity, get to be sharing my passion, my insights, my commentary, all that good stuff about the University of Utah with the Locked On Podcast Network.
Yeah, man, we're really happy to have you here, and we want the network to keep growing. We want to have all sorts of shows. We want all sorts of opinions and insights and whatnot. And fun fact, everybody, as we record this podcast, Austin and I are just 3.5 hours drive time from one another. So hopefully we'll
and about
we'll
3.5 minutes into meeting each other too. So this is a relationship building on the fly. This is
yeah, we're getting the on-air chemistry. Usually you build on-air chemistry off the air. We're doing it just kind of as we go today. So let's dive into it. You cover Utah football. You know everything related to the Utes. By the way, nobody knows what a Ute is. If you want to explain that real quick, I'm sure no one would complain. But
happy
the
to.
latest
Yeah.
news from Utah's spring football practice. Kind of what's it like up there in the Salt Lake City area?
It's really exciting to be here in Salt Lake City, especially coming off of a championship season and a near victory in the Rose Bowl. I think the big question is the question that all championship teams answer the next year is how do you get back and how do you get better? And just to be clear, a Ute is a member of a Native American tribe that was local to the Utah area, for, I don't know, thousands, hundreds of years probably. And with the permission of that tribe, the University of Utah has used that nickname for some time. So that's just a little tidbit of trivia there for you.
History.
Yeah, a little bit of history. We're going to give you history, insight, useless knowledge. That'll be a big component of the Locked On Utes program for sure. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of excitement. It's uncharted territory for the Utes, coming off of a Pac-12 championship in football. So yeah, I don't listen to just put up one banner. I think they want to put up a second, so to speak. I don't think you put banners up in a football stadium, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't think you typically would. You put those up in? Do people put those up in a basketball? I guess they kind of list like the years on the inner part of the stadium, right? Kind of going around like the Ring of Honor.
They'll find a place to put it for sure.
Yeah. And why shouldn't they? They joined the Pac-12 back when. They're the reason it became the Pac-12 back in, what was it, 2011, the 2011-2012 season. Yep, that was the first year of it. Oregon beat UCLA in the Pac-12 championship in that inaugural season. That one was played at Autzen Stadium. But, something you mentioned to me before we got on here, Austin, was that coming into this year, Kyle Wittingham, who has been just a stalwart up there in Salt Lake City for the Utes, and he's done nothing but win football games and finally was able to get to a Rose Bowl, which I think all Pac-12 fans were really happy to see. Not me and my Ducks, but we don't need to revisit that fateful day in Las Vegas this year.
You already gave me a pretty good rundown how that went. And it sounded like fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun, just not the outcome, and it led to a lot of things that we won't repeat here on the air, including swear words.
Sure.
So let's get in on the first thing here. Kyle Wittingham was rumored to not be coming back to Utah. Is that correct? But he is coming back for 2022.
Yeah, that's right. You talk about Kyle Wittingham, you talk about Utah's transition from being a Mountain West Conference, pretty, I would say top tier team in that conference to, surmounting and, climbing the summit of the Pac-12 conference. That conversation begins and ends with talking about Kyle Wittingham. He's been the coach of the University of Utah football program since Urban Meyer left in 2005 to become the head coach at Florida. It's been Kyle's show the whole way. He's been guiding this program ever since. He's been. Let's put it this way: if you're to build a Mount Rushmore of Utah sports figures in this state, I don't think it's possible to keep Kyle Wittingham off of that monument. That's how much he means to not only the program but to the community at large. Even BYU fans, to a degree, have some affinity towards Kyle, considering he's a alum of that program from his playing days. But yeah, like you said, there was some speculation, some rumor that after pretty much checking off that last box on his career accomplishments, the Pac-12 Conference Championship, that he was going to hang him up and hand the reins of the program to somebody else. But no, that doesn't seem to be the case. It clearly isn't. He's back leading the Utes for spring ball, and seems to be he's going to be the head coach for the indefinite future for a while. He'll probably hit 20 years as the head coach of the University of Utah.
Yeah, and that's good news, not just for Utah fans, but for any Pac-12 fan, because you don't want the conference, which from a football perspective has just inarguably been trending in the wrong direction. USC is way down. Chip Kelly's taken a few years. Has UCLA respectable again, right about where the Bruins are, at 8, 9, maybe even a 10-win caliber team if you throw a bowl season in there. But the conference on the whole has been down, and that's not good. I don't know if everybody fully understands that. There's a lot of, I'm sure, fear out there in fan bases about Lincoln Riley going to USC. He's going to bring them back to being a superpower. And there's a downside there for your team, but there's an upside as well, which is you raise the conference's profile, you bring in more money, you bring in more attention, and the revenue that the conference brings in gets dispersed to the schools, which they can then put back into facilities and coaches' salaries and recruiting, which is how you develop your team and ultimately go forward in terms of winning games. And I want to ask you about that real quick, but first I want to tell you all about Stat Hero. I love March Madness. It's the greatest sporting event on planet Earth. There is no second, not even the Masters, not even my beloved Masters are second. But I can't remember the last time I actually went deep in March Madness or won any money. Hedging my bets this year was Stat Hero's NCAA Pick'em contests. Stat Hero's NCAA single game Pick'ems pitch the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. That's like peanut butter and jelly, made to go together. The simple, sleek gameplay will have you playing in minutes. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. Terms and conditions do apply. That's a heck of a combo right there, Austin. Fantasy.
I would eat peanut butter and jelly. You can't beat that. Yeah.
Fantasy and
I've
sports
had a few
gambling
of those
also,
that week. Yeah, too many actually.
Fantasy and sports gambling also pretty good. But I'll be honest. Coming into today, I had not heard about those rumors about Kyle Wittingham, and he's been so good for the conference. He's been so good for Utah, and you hit on it. It's crazy that he's been at Utah the entire time that Urban Meyer's gone through like 5 different jobs and 4 different retirements or whatever it is at this point. But
yeah.
What would Utah have just felt lost without him? Because he has done such a good job of being, I think he's built Utah football into a brand for the Pac-12. People see Utah, they think, oh, Kyle Wittingham, oh, physical football. Oh, they're tough guys. Like they're going to run the ball, be physical, and play good defense as well, and do just enough offensively. And they very nearly beat a very good Ohio State team.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're completely right. I think just to reemphasize what I said, I think the Utah football begins and ends with talking about Kyle Wittingham. And that was really kind of what the rumor was It's a guy who has accomplished everything. He's the all-time winningest coach at Utah. That was something he accomplished in the first victory over Oregon last year. I don't know if you knew that. That win at Rice-Eccles Stadium put him at the top of the leaderboard. So it was really like, what else is there to do? I think the sting of that narrow loss in the Rose Bowl may have served as motivation to bring Whittingham back. But then to answer your second question as to, what, fans and all that would have felt afterwards, I think there would have been reeling a little bit. Because, I don't think the succession plan is nearly as defined as it used to be. Utah fans will tell you, it seemed pretty clear that defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley was probably slated to become the next head coach, just due to some controversy regarding some comments Scalley may have made. I think that wasn't nearly as well defined anymore. So it would have been really interesting to see who they would have gotten to replace Whittingham. But again, it's something that they're not going to have to worry about for at least another couple of years, and we'll see what happens then.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at Kyle Wittingham and you talk about, maybe he retired because he reached the summit, won the Pac-12 championship, he may have had that as his ultimate goal, that he was finally able to get there. But I don't think that the idea that he's hit his ceiling as a coach and that's kind of tough. I don't think that's it at all, because people might have forgotten back in 2019, if they beat Oregon the last time they met in the Pac-12 championship game, they probably get into the college football playoff. And I think that Utah is a team that has started to bring in the sorts of players, has started to recruit at the level and play on the field at a pace and a tempo and a style that is conducive to being able to get a big-time early non-conference win and then get themselves into the college football playoff. I mean, when you watch College Game Day every week, and, for many years now, the conversation has been, when is the Pac-12 getting back to the college football playoff? Haven't done it since Washington did it, and then they got beat by Alabama. Oregon, of course, was in the first ever college football playoff, but that's it. There have been no other appearances. And now a lot of people will be talking about Lincoln Riley. When's he going to get USC into a college football playoff contender? I think that's a valid conversation to have. But I don't think that Utah is going to get lost in the shuffle, because for the last couple of years it's been, well, is it going to be Oregon or is it going to be Utah that will finally, climb that mountain and get back into the Final Four teams and play for a national championship? And I think that though USC will get a lot of attention, and the number of commentators nationally who will throw Utah out there, it might come down a little, right? Because they'll say it's a ticking time bomb with Lincoln Riley at USC, which it could be, but he also. That's a conversation for a different day. But I think that Utah has earned the right to be in that discussion, and I think that as long as Whittingham's there, they have the potential to do that. And speaking of the sorts of players that they've brought in, since you're covering the Utes nonstop, why don't you fill the fans in on how the recruiting cycle went this year and transfers that they've come in, and how they'll, just kind of the top-tier guys and how they shape up for the roster in 2022.
Yeah, no, you make a great point. I think Kyle Wittingham really believes and has sold Utah as a premier destination, not only on the recruiting level, but also through the transfer portal. And I think there are a couple exciting movements in both of those areas to report. Most recently this week, Utah signed a 4-star quarterback, Mac Howard, out of Oxford, Mississippi. He's going to probably ride the bench behind Cam Rising, and there's going to be a quarterback battle probably in the next couple of years for his heir apparent, so to speak. But to go into Mississippi and get a 4-star quarterback I think, really speaks to just how elevated Utah's become on the national level. And then through the transfer portal, there's another exciting report not report, but a confirmed transfer. Former Florida linebacker Mohamed Diabate. I hope I don't say that wrong. He's going to be coming over and trying to fill those shoes left by Devin Lloyd.
Big shoes.
Big shoes, yeah. And interestingly, we'll have the chance to face his former team in Utah's first game of the season at Florida next season. So, to your point, yeah, I think Kyle Wittingham has really done an excellent job of building this program into a place that guys from all over the country want to be in Salt Lake City to win championships, to win football games, and alluding to Devin Lloyd's NFL draft status, get to the next level.
Yeah, and that plays into being a recruiting destination or a place that guys want to go. Is if I go here, well, I have a chance to elevate my game, showcase on a national scale that I'm capable of playing on Sundays. That's why colleges, or part of the reason colleges talk so much and do so many social media posts and, follow along with their grads in the NFL, because it helps in retrospect it's a piece of the puzzle, right? It's not the entire puzzle, but it's maybe a corner piece or a filler, however you want to draw out that analogy or that metaphor with a puzzle there, right? Is like, it's something that is a component as to guys' mindset on the recruiting trail of why would a guy from Mississippi go up to Utah? Well, I'm playing. In what position is he? The recruit you just talked about, the quarterback, right?
He's a quarterback, yeah.
Right. And then you have the transfer from Florida. So respectively, you look at a guy like Cam Rising this past season who lit it up and was 9-1 as the starter, 9-2 with the Rose Bowl loss to Ohio State, where he unfortunately got injured at the end, and the backup quarterback played phenomenally well in that game, also from the state of Utah. I just think that all of that plays into being able to go out to high school kids and sit down in their living room and say, this is what we're building. This is what we're capable of. We sent Devin Lloyd. He's going to be a top 10, 15 pick in the NFL draft. You look at Cam Rising, whose profile is growing on a national level in the collegiate game. I think those are really strong selling points. And what a fascinating first game as well for Diabate to go against Florida and their new head coach, Billy Napier, in game one. That'll be a big statement game. We'll touch on that and then get to some futures for Utah in terms of how they get back to the Pac-12 championship game. But first, I want to tell you about Bet Online, your number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. Find all the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcasts, and reviews for all the different leagues this season. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the bets and action and the trends. Bet Online, where the game starts. Just a quick note to everybody out there. I said this on my Locked On Ducks podcast as well. If you're trying to actually make money betting on a golf tournament, don't try and pick a winner. It's a sucker's bet. Find value in top 10s and top 20s. That's the money zone. You can get a lot of value out there in top 20s if you know your stuff, right? You got to do some research, but I'm just telling you, you do all the research in the world, you could hit dozens and dozens of top 20s and rake in the cash before you ever hit a winner. It is so random. So many things have to go right. But top 20s, top 30s, miscut, all that sort of fun stuff. That's the way to go.
This is good to know. This is going right up here, right in the ball. So keep that in mind.
And Bet Online is the best place to check that out. So Utah gets to the Pac-12 championship game for the second time, I believe. The first one was against Oregon 2019, then again against Oregon 2021. Was there other one in there I was missing?
Yeah, they played Washington.
That's right. They played Washington. So they've been there 3 times. They're not strangers to the game, but you make 2 out of 3, and that starts to get people's attention, right, on the recruiting trail, but also in the conference, other coaches and teams and fan bases as well. The first game of the year you mentioned is against Florida, which would be it's in the Swamp, isn't it?
It's in the Swamp, yep.
That's a huge opportunity, huge opportunity to not just get a resume builder, but, a profile builder for the conference, right? Much like UCLA's win over LSU to start last year was. Like, that was just huge to let people know on a national level, the Pac-12 can compete with other conferences. So that'll obviously be an obstacle, but primarily for Utah to get back to the Pac-12 championship game, they don't necessarily have to win that one. They've got to get through their conference schedule. But just, big picture here, Austin, and we're talking with Austin Facer here of Locked On Utes. For those of you listening on podcast, we thank you for doing that. Like and subscribe. What does Utah have to do to get back to the game that you're worried about as a fan and someone who covers the team? What reservations do you maybe have?
Well, I mean, they've got to win the games they're supposed to. That seems pretty trite. It's an easy observation to make, but it's something Utah, just for whatever reason, they're not always very good at that. Yeah. I don't have an explanation why they lose games they really shouldn't every year. Usually 1 or 2. Last year, I think losses to Oregon State. That was a little inexplicable to me. Also in non-conference play, they lost to San Diego State and BYU. I think for me, I really want to see Utah show up and dominate those games against those kind of lower half tier Pac-12 opponents. I think there are also going to be some challenges. I think they're going to be on the road against UCLA, at your Ducks towards the end of the year in November. It seems like November has always been tricky for Utah, except for last year. For whatever reason, they managed to crack the code on that. But I think really just winning the games at home that they're supposed to. Oregon State, USC would be a great win. Arizona, Stanford, just getting those easy ones and keeping them easy, I think will really be key for Utah.
I don't see USC being a major hurdle in year one. I don't think it'll be as easy as last year, but look, Lincoln Riley knows offense, and he knows how to win games in college football. I'm sure he'll be able to get USC back to a winning level. I don't know if this is considered a hot take or anything, Austin, but I don't think it's going to be as easy for him as he thinks because of the state of just the trenches, really, on both sides of the ball for USC. I mean, they need major, major help. And Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator, has to be a rock star, which he is capable of being, but those Oklahoma defenses, they weren't that good. Now, I would argue that the Pac-12 offenses they're going up against are not as explosive on the aggregate as what you saw in the Big 12 with teams like Oklahoma State or Baylor's always been able to score points. You can go up and down the list. Texas Tech can put up points, or they always have been able to, really. But I still think that defensively they're going to have some areas that need not just 1 year. And, yeah, you can go into the transfer portal and get a handful of guys, and that's great. But you still have to have 11 high-level players, at least at a Pac-12 level on defense. And I think that watching USC the last couple of years, that on the offensive line, on the defensive side of the ball, they just don't have that right now. And it'll take them a couple of years, but it will not be – I don't see this being a 1-year turnaround for Lincoln Riley at USC.
No, I agree. I think it's really going to be key for Utah to take advantage of the fact that not only do they have USC at home, they don't play very well in the Coliseum. They haven't played very well historically over the last 100 years.
Well, the fans haven't been showing up.
Well, it's a hard trip, It's scary. Have you been on that side of LA on
I've actually been to the Coliseum when the Ducks trounced them in 2019.
Yeah,
that was a fun time. My then girlfriend got us 2 tickets to go to the game, and let me tell you, that was a good birthday present right there. That was quality stuff.
Very thoughtful on her part. That's good to hear. But yeah, I think a lot of. I mean, the reason is I think most Utah people when they go to Southern California, they go to Disneyland. They don't go to Utah USC football games. But back to your point, I think it's going to be really key to. This is kind of a year where Utah is very loaded. We've talked about how they did lose some key guys, particularly Devin Lloyd, Britton Covey, who's been there since the 1890s. And
I love watching that guy play football. I mean, he killed the Ducks in 2 games this year, but I couldn't hate him. I've been a Duck fan my whole life, everybody. I could not dislike watching Britton Covey play. That dude's a baller.
And just so you're aware, he's a good person off the field as well. I think
good to hear.
That's probably more important in the grand scheme, but for our purposes, we'll just talk about his on field. But yeah, I think it's going to be really key for Utah to take advantage of the fact that they're loaded. They know what they're doing. They're coming back off of a championship with plenty of ammo left, so to speak. They've got quarterback. They've got guys in key positions. They've got some transfers coming in who will really be a big part of the picture. So I think that the table is set for Utah to have another terrific year this year, and it's just a matter of executing.
Yeah, I think the Cam Rising being back is probably the biggest reason I've got confidence in them and would probably make them the favorites in the Pac-12 South, though I wouldn't sleep on UCLA. Utah is taking care of them the last few years, but that is a UCLA team that will have DTR coming back. That's the
game to watch, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. More than Utah USC. I think Utah will take care of them when that game comes around. But when you look at UCLA, pretty sure Charbonnet is coming back, the running back, who is just a force, absolute force back there with DTR. UCLA can run the ball. Chip Kelly is not what he was back when he was our golden child up in Eugene, but
sure,
he still knows offense. He still knows how to run the ball. He still knows how to put up points. They've got a new defensive coordinator, and oh my gosh, did they need one, because the previous guy, it was that move should have been made a year or two ago.
I've always felt there's no reason that UCLA fell as low as they did. You know, they've got great facilities. They're in a great part of the country. They've got all the resources in the world. And, you know, I think it really was smart on their part to give Chip Kelly that patience to go through those losing seasons to arrive where they are, you know, with his people in place to really kind of maybe bring back some of his Oregon days to the Bruins.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever recapture the magic that was. I mean, that was just, you know, as an Oregon fan, I can tell you that was a unique time in college football, and I'll probably never feel anything like that again for the Ducks, and that's okay,
incredibly sad. Yeah.
Well, it's just because it was so. Yeah, it altered the landscape. It altered the way that you know, people talked about the Ducks, that people played college football. I mean, here's this guy from New Hampshire who said, we're not going to huddle, we're going to go fast all the time. And game day's putting up countdown clocks of how fast could they snap the ball, right? And now everybody does some variation of. That's why I say you can never recapture that. Not that Oregon can't get back to winning at a high level, getting back to national championship games. They absolutely can. They've got the program, the pedigree, and we're hoping the coach to do that in Dan Lanning. But it's just that was such a, I don't want to call it lightning in a bottle, but I want to say that it could only happen one time. You know, does that make sense? Like, it just, you can't always revolutionize the game the way that Chip did. And gosh, I could talk for an hour and a half about that glorious era. But I agree, smart on UCLA's part to, you know, be patient with them, not be overly reactionary, and look at a couple losing seasons. Okay, you know, this improved and we beat USC, and you know, I mean, Chip's beaten USC twice now, and that's not insignificant. And I think that, you know, they got down, and they were not just way down; they were way down all the way.
The cupboard was pretty bare when he got in.
Yeah, it was really, really thin. I don't think they even had a full roster of scholarship players when he got there.
My recollection, they did not.
Yeah, and so I think he's doing a solid job. And as a Duck fan, I am always kind of rooting for him on the side, unless he's playing the Ducks, of course. In which case, I'm sorry, Chip, we need to hand you the L there. But
it's fair.
There was something that you touched on that I'm now just like blanking on. That I was going. Oh, I remember. You said that most people go to Southern California, go to Disneyland, and not a Utah USC football game. Yep. I consider myself a member of the top 1/10 of 1% that would happily go to both. That is 100% a great way to spend some time. And I actually think UCLA is a little bit tougher of a job than you might think, because remember, the Rose Bowl is not on campus. You know, like for Duck fans, it's a walk through the woods, and there's a tailgating area, and Autzen Stadium's right there, and that's part of the experience. It's different when you have to, you know, get on the bus to go to the games, and you can't just walk to it and walk back to your dorm. I think that makes it a little bit tougher. Plus, it's basically impossible on the West Coast to sell out a place like the Rose Bowl. It just hasn't happened regularly for a while. So I think it's a tough thing to be able to do. It's not impossible, but you have to
being seen on television, I think, is another thing that, you know, on a national scale, is something that Pac-12 coaches are always going to have to wrestle with, you know, just with the time constraints. And all that.
And I know everyone loves the, shall we say, the energy or the vibe of Pac-12 After Dark, but
it's fun,
It's fun, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not actually good for exposure for West Coast football teams. It's no one on the East Coast is staying up that late. I mean, you know, maybe I am biased, but I believe West Coast bias is a very real thing. That's why McCaffrey didn't win the Heisman and Derrick Henry did. Like, Christian McCaffrey was the best player in the country. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But not as many people were up watching Christian McCaffrey because the Pac-12 was putting him late at night. I think that's why we got back to early times. But we could we could probably keep going for a while here, but why don't we call it there for today? It won't be the last time that you hear from him here on Locked On Pac-12. His name is Austin Facer, the new host of Locked On Utes. Go check him out. Free and available on all platforms. YouTube channel is coming as well. I, of course, am Spencer McLaughlin. I host Locked On Ducks YouTube podcast. We are everywhere there for everything you need to know about the Oregon Ducks. Austin, boy, I feel like I know you really well now, man. After 30 minutes of getting to know you, plus 5 minutes before we came on, that was a lot of fun, and we'll do it again.
Yeah, I tend to have a real calming effect on people, so I've heard. So that's nice of you.
I do feel very at ease. I feel very at ease. Yeah, I feel.
Yeah, as you should. Yep.
Hopefully, you all feel that way as well. We will see you next time on Locked On Pac-12. Have a wonderful